Hello, you guys, and thank you so much for tuning into my channel. Please excuse the light. I think I waited too long in the day to make this video, but I hope you can see me. You can see me, right? Now, before I begin this video, I just want to start off like how I start off most of my videos, by really stating that I come, or at least I'm trying to come from a place of love. I'm coming from a place of compassion, and I'm honestly just wanting to have a conversation. Now, remember, everything that I said again is based on the context of my experience, and in no way am I trying to speak against anybody else's experience, but rather, I guess, speak from my own truth. Now, that's out of the way. I think a common question that a lot of people have in their minds about trans, either men or women, is, especially for transgender women, is how do you know that you are transgender? How do you know that you are a woman trapped in the body of a man if you've never been socialized in that way or had that lived experience? I think for so many people out there, the concept of transitioning in and of itself is foreign. It's definitely foreign. A lot of people don't necessarily understand it. And I think what makes or further compounds the issue is, on top of them sometimes not understanding why a person feels like one gender and not the other, there is often fear in asking, there are often misconceptions, and there are often, like ideas and I don't know, information that people kind of pick up either from secondary sources. Like, I've noticed how, like, often people have no issue in talking about transgender people when trans people are not in their space, but there is an issue when talking to a trans person about an actual issue or question and concern that you have. And I get it. I mean, so many trans women, myself included, have been traumatized and have been discriminated, and often, get treated in some kind of way. So I understand why some people would rather not even ask questions like that and, come up with conclusions in their own mind. But I think for me personally, how I knew that I was essentially a woman trapped in the body of a man, how I knew that was growing up. Honestly, I genuinely thought that I was a girl. And I know that sounds crazy. It's kind of like, did you not see what you had going on downstairs? How were your parents dressing you? What were the messages? Whenever I say that to people, that I genuinely thought that I was genetically born female, it was news to me when my parents were like, no, you are a boy. That was straight up news to me. And, it's funny in that I remember, so my dad passed away when I was about 3 years old, turning 4. And believe it or not, I actually do have memories of him. I do have memories, some, like slight memories of me being very young with him and my parents. And one of my earliest memories, I guess, of my dad is his discomfort with my femininity, his discomfort in my feminine interest. I mean, I came out, you know, like I modeled out of my mom's womb. That's the best way that I can explain it. I modeled out of her womb, and I was gravitated to anything and everything pink, hence the Barbie collection. But yeah, like I remember just being 3 and my mom just being like, we can't buy you this, we can't buy you dresses, and you have to act like this, and you need to remember you're a boy. And there was a lot of shame and embarrassment that my mother had. Now, when my father um, passed on, obviously, I think my mom at the time definitely needed time to heal and to process the loss. So much of my upbringing or much of my rearing was really left, like to the maid, or yeah, like to people who worked for us. And my mother was sort of like this distant figure. And I kid you not, I, yeah, she was like a distant figure. It was almost like when you were going to, like when I would go to my mom's room, I would be nervous and it would be like, I'm going to see somebody that I don't usually see. So there was a distance there. And obviously, like I think all children idolize their parents to some degree before they demonize them. And my mother, truly and honest to God, was and still is a living Barbie doll. I'll never forget being like 6 years old and watching something on Cartoon Network. And my mom just walks into the living room and she had her braids coming down and she was wearing this long, beautiful blue dress. And I was just mesmerized by her. Now, how does this relate to how did I know that I was female? Now, the reason I bring up these incidents or these experiences and memories and stuff is to bring upon a very important question that I think many people have had in relation to my transition. And my psychologist even asked me this. Many psychologists have asked me this when I began my transition and in the midst of my transition, and even later on. And that was, which parent did I idolize and emulate? And was I in any way jealous of my older sibling, my sister, who had been given way more than me, and was, obviously the golden child? And I remember when my therapist once asked, do you think it's possible that how you were reared, how you were raised, the lack of a father and a male presence in the home, and how you idolized your mother and how you idolized your older sister, who was the golden child? Do you ever wonder if that may have played into your decision for transitioning? And I remember when I was first posed with this question, like I'm someone who like I tend to be very skeptical and critical, and I like to be challenged. And I remember my honest response to that psychologist, and I still feel it to this day, is that regardless of whether or not um, I may have been, regardless of whether or not it was nature or nurture, because I think that's what she was trying to insinuate, that me being trans was because of some, I don't want to say trauma in my upbringing, but yeah, like basically that. And I remember I just looked at her and I was like, well, with all due respect, I definitely can see how that can be true. And I can definitely, yeah, like I see how that would have definitely played on my mind. However, my feelings of femininity predated um, my father's passing. They were the earliest that I had. And upon the realization that, I was genetically born male, and my mom literally had to sit me down and be like, there's nothing we can do, you're staying a boy. Um, that's really when I started having, like thoughts of, just being with my dad and no longer participating in like the planet. And that's really, I think, when a deep seated sadness came in. Now, it's important to note that despite the fact that I feel that I'm feminine, I feel that I'm a woman trapped in a man's body, this, that, and the other, despite the fact that I've transitioned and all of these other things, I think like I've always viewed my transition as the womanhood that I've always had to fight for. Other women are naturally born and endowed with femininity. It is their God given right. They are blessed with these things. And yes, like they are the blueprint. Let's be honest here. A trans woman wanting, like a trans woman wanting to be a woman essentially is looking at a naturally born woman and being like, I would like to emulate, represent, or somehow be that. Now, I understood that I was not socialized as a girl. It was painfully clear on the one hand because I remember how my mom and sister, obviously, because she was a golden child, and there was a time when my mom and my sister bonded over modeling. They had a relationship and an understanding and a connection that I simply didn't have with them. And it went further than, me being the scapegoated child. It went further than me being different. It touched upon, I think, genetic women because of how they are socialized, because essentially of sociology, and because of the understanding that they have, um essentially within their own spaces. They don't have to be taught to be women. um and I know that sounds contradictory, but they don't have to be taught to be women by one specific person. It is society as a whole that tells them what they can or cannot do as biological women. And for me as a trans woman, I remember coming up and being aware of the privilege that I actually held being born male, especially in my greater family and societal um, space. Like I definitely got it that, because I was born male for whatever reason, in class teachers would listen to what I had to say, like my voice somehow had an authority. um it just did. And I was almost taught to be very bold and to go after what I want. And it wasn't that I was taught by any one person, it was rather the ingrained misogyny, this idea that, boys need to be reared in one way to be strong, powerful, and take over, and girls are reared in another way to be docile, submissive, and in some way lesser. Well, yeah, like society does teach that. Let's just be real. And I got that, simply being born in the body that I was born in, meaning being born male and perceived at that time as male, offered me a protection that uh, my cousins didn't have, that my sister didn't have. And that protection is that people were afraid of me. Like when I'd walk down the street, like I was. It's funny. I had friends who, because of how I would present masculinity, and before I transitioned, I actually presented masculinity in an extremely um, sort of hardcore way. So my voice was over the top deep. It literally was. I put on such a show, and I would walk down the street, and there was a sense of intimidation there. And it was so weird because, on the one hand, on the inside, I feel like this Barbie doll, but on the outside, people are seeing this black man walking and stuff, and they're seeing me. And back then, I had like muscles and stuff. So they would see one thing, but my internal reality was, girl, like I literally felt like a girl from the valley. I felt my black African ass literally felt like my Mormon American church members. I felt no different. Like on the inside, I immediately, it was easier for me to identify, to relate to everything feminine, and there was just a natural draw to that. But there was obviously this awareness that I could not participate in anything feminine, that I had to sort of overcompensate and act all, like dudeish and whatever. And, when you do actually transition, and this is the case for me, when I did actually transition, because femininity had been something that was repressed, because it was something that I was never able to be experience, and because I felt it was an inherent part of my identity. When I did transition and come into my femininity, my expression of femininity is, yeah, like it's very stereotypical trans woman in some ways, in that, like there is and I remember my cousin once said it to me, him and his fiance, we were talking about this, and he was like, sometimes it feels like there's an over exaggeration of femininity, and it feels disingenuous. And I was like, yeah, like I can definitely get how you can see or perceive it in that way, because best way I can explain it is, if you hold an elastic band, my words, and you pull it all the way back, and there's this pressure and there's this pressure. Once you release it, it's yeah, it goes to the extreme. And for me, I went through many stages when I first transitioned. I went through the stage where I desperately wanted and needed to pass, and because of that, I did not enjoy or embrace my ambiguity, my gender ambiguity, in the way that I wish I could have. I really wish I could have. And there was another part where I was sort of like very threatened, like constantly getting beat up and made fun of, and I had to like damn near change university, and was getting like threats, people trying to unalive me. So there was that one part of desperately wanting to pass, um, intense fear of the judgment and the scrutiny that comes with being trans, and a numbness that followed, and then finally, there was a point in my transition where I personally felt that I'd reached the female threshold, meaning that I could pass, and more people were sort of just treating me like any other black woman off the side of the street. And that was such a powerful and wonderful time in my life where I finally felt accepted and embraced in my femininity. So, are transgender women different from biological women? Yes, of course. We all know this. Biologically, according to science, according to, like, I mean, even just looking at the differences, sometimes you can see. But despite all of those things, really what makes us different is our journey and how we get to our femininity, how we get to um, the truest version of ourselves. Biological women have one journey and trans women have another. And no, we are not socialized in the same way that a biological woman is. To even suggest that would be like ludicrous unless you were raised from like unless you transitioned from age 6. We weren't socialized as females, but that does not take away the feminine essence within us. And it also begs the question, and I've always had this question, like when people are like, how do you know, like, you're a woman in the body of a man? How do you know you're really transgender? And I'm like, well, how did you know that? How did you know that women were supposed to wear high heels or lipstick, or were these things that society taught you? A lot of the things we associate with femininity truly is performance. It is how you dress, your mannerisms, how you walk, how you interact and engage with other people that you believe are the same gender, or believe are not the same gender. There's a subtlety to femininity. It is essentially your energy. And the best way that I can explain that is there's this guy on YouTube, Jane Nadajian, and he does, like Tila Tequila, where he dresses up as all these characters, mostly female, male sometimes, but is so convincing that with a full beard, that boy has us convinced he is Miss Tila Tequila, he is Miss Robinson. Like, there is no, like, it's his energy is just feminine. And it's like, how can his energy as a gay, biological man who likes being a man, how can he in the one moment express femininity and in the other express masculinity? And it's simple. The answer to that, it's your energy. Best way I can describe it, it is your energy. It is your energy. It is the essence of you that somehow comes out. You know what I mean? And look, most of us on the planet, most of us on this beautiful green planet that we share with aliens, most of us have the experience of being born in the bodies that, we feel we should have been born in. Bless. Most of us never have to have this question. Most of us never have to have this journey or have to fight for something that seemingly is just God given to other people. I understand the need that a lot of biological women have in protecting their identity, and a lot of the fear that they have regarding people who transition and how they transition and how they often insert themselves into biological women's spaces forcibly. And again, I go back to the energy, and that's why, like, for me, and this is going to sound terrible and hella privileged and even transphobic, but I don't actually consider everyone who calls themselves transgender to be transgender. I simply don't. I go off what I see in front of me and the energy and the story and the journey that a person has um, had. For me, you kind of have to like prove that you're trans like me. Otherwise, I assume that it's something else, and you're still growing and evolving. And I do that to sort of protect my identity. I do that to um yeah, like it's like I don't see everybody who says that they are trans as an actual trans person. I think you really have to you have to go through the trenches. Like I'm sorry that that might sound like gatekeeping or whatever, but you have to go through the trenches. You have to ask yourself the serious questions, go to the therapy. Girl, go to that therapy house, go to the church house, like, do your own little bit of research, um, really dig deep, walk that journey, and prove to us that you are that energy, and the rest of us will see it. The rest of us, some of us will embrace it, others will not, but most importantly, you will be happy. So I know I've said a lot because I I be talking, but I hope that y'all all understood my ramblings. And I just want to thank you to everyone who supported me throughout the years, and everyone who continues to watch the channel, even though I can be a shady bitch. Um, and to everyone who continues just to show me love. Um, I want to send you so much love this Christmas season. So, like, big virtual hug. And I'm going to try and make another video tomorrow. I want to finally go into astrology, but look at it from a transgender perspective. So, I hope to see you again tomorrow, and we'll talk about more fun stuff. Bye.